Boomer Brown from CADAS is going to help us with the next award. Boomer's always the life of the party.
Good evening. I am Boomer, and I am an alcoholic. Oh, y'all can do better than that, because I know there's a lot of you out there. I'm going to do this a little different, because the Lifetime Achievement Award is a special award because the people who receive this award also have other things. Battle scars, respect, faith in the process, tolerance, understanding, wisdom beyond belief, because they've been around a long time. They've learned patience again, but they've also learned how to handle adversity. They've learned how to put one foot in front of the other and not give up, because they've learned through their own recovery, if they're in recovery, and most of them are, or a lot of them are, let me say that. They learn through their own recovery that this too shall pass, and so you have a tendency not to get caught up in something. You just say, this too shall pass, and you move on. And when this gentleman, and I'm going to do something, I'm going to tell you who it is, because I can't sit here and not talk about this person without you all knowing who I'm talking about, because it's fun that way. Because this guy's special, and for me to talk about him, I want him to know. Hal McCarter, you are unbelievable. Go ahead and clap for him, because I'm going to talk about him before he comes up here. You know, I got the chance to read his biography, or the information that was put forth by him, or the person that presented him for this award. And I can tell you, I've got 27 years in recovery, I've got 27 years in the field, and I can tell you that it's a learning process. And I got to reading about Hal, and I've tried to think back when Hal first came to TAADAS. I think it was 6 or 7 years ago, or is it 5 years ago? Well, he came for about 3 years before I ever heard him speak. He'd come into the meeting, he'd go over and sit in the corner, and he would sit there. And I really didn't know who the gentleman was. And then all of a sudden, he started showing up at the legislative committee. And he started asking questions, and he started talking, and then it became obvious that he was a late act, and it became obvious that he was there for a purpose. He didn't come just to hang around like some of us. This gentleman came to Tennessee back in 1991, and he came in that real populated area of northwest Tennessee. You know, how many of you have been to Dyersburg? Okay. It's not a metropolis, and there's not a lot of 10-story buildings up there, but it's a beautiful part of the country. And he went up there, and he sunk his roots, and I've got to go back here and read this one thing. You've got 15 great grandchildren. You got 15 grandchildren. Damn, you got 8 children. And just one wife. That's pretty good. Hell, when did you have time to drink, Hal? You know, I've met his staff, a lot of his staff, and I know that he brought some people with him tonight. And you got to get to know this quiet giant in this field, because he's quietly built a very strong organization in Northwest Tennessee. And there's a judge here tonight, I believe, by the name of Jimmy Smith, The reason I'm reading off my iPad is I had this beautiful little presentation and I left it. One thing about being a Lifetime Achievement Award winner, you probably forget things. So I'm just going to read what Jimmy Smith, the judge, wrote about Hal McCarter before I bring him up here. He said, even though Mr. McCarter was well established and successful in Dyers County, I asked him to step outside the comfort zone and expand to Oberon County? Obion. Oh, Lord, I don't want to mispronounce that. Because it would serve to benefit those in need. He really agreed to do so. Not only has he and his staff come to O'Brien County to assist the court, he has gone the extra mile by establishing a permanent office here. And I'm not going to read the rest of it, but the judge felt strong enough about this man to come here tonight to be here when he got this award. And I tell you what, let's all stand up and give a rounding cheer for Hal McCarter, Lifetime Achievement Award winner, 2015.
Some people would not believe that I'm lost for words, but I am totally shocked and undeserving. I really don't know what to say. It was an interesting thing happened when I came in here tonight. There was a guy over there from Bradford, the Bradford treatment centers. And I just stopped and talked to him for a minute, and I said, you know, I really have a long story with Bradford. In 1980, they had a part of the hospital in Cleveland, Tennessee, and I could tell you for a while, you know, how I got there, but I don't remember, you know. But I started out in St. Louis, and I wound up in Chattanooga, and then Cleveland in treatment, and So I was just telling him that it was interesting that I saw Bradford there, and for whatever reason it came to me. And when I was leaving Bradford Hospital, that I had a counselor there that I was talking with, a psychologist, and she said, "Did you ever think about doing counseling?" And I said, "Well, I never really did." She said, "You know, you might be okay, you know." And a couple years later, I started working on it, and 30 years later, here I am. And as Boomer said, putting one foot in front of the other. And I tell you, I cannot be more appreciative. And I tell you, it's been a tough few years because some of you, a lot of you know Terry, and she has been disabled for 8 years, and she was the strong one behind what we have done, and she's the one that put it all together, and she knows much more about the business, I think, than I ever will. But it's really been a tough because I didn't know if we were going to make it or not, and without her. But she's still behind us, and I said, you know, and I told her, I said, God's really got a sense of humor, you know, because I really married her to take care of me, and she's 20 years younger than me. She'll always say 19, but it's close enough to 20. She's 20 years younger than me. I said, now I'm taking care of you, but believe me, I have been so blessed. I just don't know. I don't know why I've been blessed with the health that I have, and I've been able to do what I needed to do. And people like Judge Smith, and I'm grateful to see his wife here. And if you ever, let me tell you something, if you ever want a T-shirt made for somebody, she's got a place in Tennessee that's called Inside Out. And she makes bow ties and purses out of any favorite team that you got, you know. And she might even make one for one of the Gators, Charlie. And I would like to say that I really admire the people that's got these awards tonight. I've known Charlie for I guess ever since he's been in TAADAS, and he has done a great work. And as I say, I really feel so appreciative, and I'm so undeserving of this. And I'm glad I did not know that my wife was going to be here tonight. This is the first thing that she's been able to attend in 8 years, and I didn't know until she walked in the door that she was going to be here. So that was a real surprise to me. And I'd like to thank everybody that's here, and Rod and all the people that we've worked with for so many years that has assisted us on being successful in our business. And we hope we're not done yet. You know, somebody was asking me when I was going to retire. You know, and I said, well, you know, I'm not sure. I'm 78 now. And I've got a 5-year plan, you know, and I said, and somebody said, you know, I said, well, I don't know why I would retire, because I'm doing what I love. I have never, in this field, I have never not wanted to go to work, and I mean, wow, what a feeling that is, and not feel like I've ever had to work a day in my life, but it's tough, you know, working in this building, because our success rate is sometimes less than we want to see, you know. But anyway, I said, I guess the main reason I don't retire is I don't know anything else, and this is the only thing I know at this point. And I said, I don't fish, and I don't golf, and I'm too old to chase women. So what would I do? You know. So, but I am so glad to thank you so much, and Terry. Believe it or not, Terry's going to say something. And those of you that know her, she's never lost for words.
You don't have to walk away from me. I asked somebody if it would be okay if I said something, but I know a lot of you, but I probably know him better than anybody here, and I truly cannot think of a person who is more deserving. He's retired 3 times, and he said he's going to retire. Again, I said, oh, honey, please don't. Please don't, because every time he retires, he adds 5 more hours to the week, or 10 more hours to the week. I said, I really don't think God's going to put more hours in the week just because you want to retire. So, but he is a wonderful man. He's a wonderful father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and husband. And I would not be able to stand here beside him tonight. He's taken such good care of me, and it really was a surprise for him, and it was very hard for me to keep it from him. And I know that a lot of you have been praying, and there have been a lot of you praying without even knowing who I am, but I appreciate those prayers, and please don't stop, because I have a long way to go, and I love you.